One of the most insane and thrilling matches is just about to start, and I'm of course talking about Bastard München versus the Ubers. The Bastard München players start to walk out, but in the hall, Kaiser reminds Isagi that it's whoever scores the most goals that win, and tells him not to run away. After that, they get out on the field and meet up with the Ubers. The Ubers greet Isagi, and all of them are ready for payback, but the one who's the most fired up of them all is Baru, who goes to Isagi and straight up headbutts him. Isagi notices Baru's red highlights right off the bat and calls him out for it, calling him a narcissist. Even so, Baru says that he's proud over them and that he put them in to celebrate 100 million, while calling out Isagi for only being worth a pity of 50 million. But the Ubers players quickly come to ruin Baru's pride, as Aiku says that Baru suddenly wanted to pump himself up before facing Isagi. Baru quickly denies those claims and says that he suddenly wanted to go for a different look. However, Aryu and Nico add on, with Aryu saying that he's like a girl before a date and Nico calling him Princess Baru. And because of that, they end up in a headlock by Baru, you know, just the typical Baru. Aiku then tells Isagi that the ones who'll be sitting on the Blue Lock's throne will be the Ubers, and that just sounds so cold. After that, we get into the Blue Lock Central Monitor Room, where the chairman of the Japan Football Union comes in and tells Ego that Blue Lock Television is amazing and that they are making tons of money. He shows Ego a bunch of mascots he made, but Ego just smashes them into his face. Ego asks if that was all he came for, and the chairman says that it was. However, he also reminds Ego about the promise he made when he approved Blue Lock Television, and I'm so curious to know what the promise was, and if you have any guesses, then please leave it down in the comments. Back on the pitch, Isagi is thinking to himself, saying that he knows what he needs to do, and that he put in the necessary work during training. All that's left is for him to prove that his theory works in the actual game. And with that, the kickstart of the match starts. Kaiser and Ness trades passes to start it off like always, and as they are doing so, Isagi is looking at them from the side, saying that Uber's formation is an ultra-defensive formation that's tightly packed in the center, and even if they manage to shake their marks in the 1v1, the other Ubers players will immediately press them with 2 or even 3 players. Kaiser comes to Nico, and Nico thanks Kaiser for making Isagi stronger. After that, Kaiser passes to Ness. However, Ness jumps over it and lets it roll over to Grim. After Grim has gotten the ball, that's when Ness starts to run all that he can, moving all the way to the front. It looks like the ball is going to Ness, but in reality, he's just the bait for a much bigger fish, which of course is Kaiser, who's currently battling Nico. Isagi is amazed that they were able to break Uber's formation by making Ness make a run from the midfield. However, as the ball falls to Kaiser, another one appears. He cuts off the pass with pinpoint accuracy, and that's when we get to know that it's the heartbeat of Uber's defense, and also a next-generation World 11 by the name of Don Lorenzo the Ace Eater. Isagi says that Lorenzo managed to instantly catch on to Kaiser's unpredictable attack, and then positioned himself perfectly so that he could shut it down in one move, calling Lorenzo's vision, positioning, and physical ability all top-notch. Kaiser tells Lorenzo to stop laughing, and that every time he shows off those golden teeth of his, it pisses Kaiser off. Lorenzo ignores that and asks Kaiser if he's worth more than 300 million yen if he managed to shut Kaiser down. Kaiser just calls him a creepy, gold-toothed loan shark who only seeks people as money, which Lorenzo responds with a quote saying that there's nothing in this world that money can't buy, showing us his obsession with money. Then Lorenzo starts to brutally just point at everyone, saying how much they are worth. Kind of rude. However, after that, he asks them if they are ready for their counterattack. Lorenzo is about to pass a long cross-up on the field, however Kunigami comes to stop him, but ends up with broken ankles by Lorenzo, who beautifully gets away from him, only to find Raichi behind. Raichi tells him to just try and get past him, however Lorenzo kind of owns him by calling him worthless, as he's worth absolutely 0, before doing some crazy ninja moves to get behind Raichi. Lorenzo makes a one-touch with Sendo to get behind Yukimiya. Igarashi gets up from his seat and tells them to do something to stop Lorenzo. Beside him, we have Hiroi, who's carefully watching the field, saying that this is really bad. On defense, the Ubers string together consecutive presses and funnel their opponent towards Lorenzo, who lies in wait on the back line, and as soon as Lorenzo steals the ball, they make a switch. This makes it into a flexible system where Nico drops back to play centre-back while Lorenzo participates in the attack. They use their large number of players to their advantage to attack all at once and create a long-range zombie counterattack. Lorenzo goes into a shooting stance and baits that guy that I forgot the name of. Corona goes to stop him, but Hiroi thinks that it's a mistake, and that the second they focus too much on stopping Lorenzo, they lose track of the one player who absolutely thrives in these situations, which of course is the king himself, Baru Shuei. Hiroi says Baru and Lorenzo together make a system where the two kings of offense and defense combine forces, saying that this is Uber's goal-scoring formula. However, before the ball can even get to Baru, someone stops it. And who else would it be if not Isagi Yoichi? Isagi takes the ball and makes some really cool slide on the ground, but he says that it's nice to finally see the trick behind his hat trick before saying that he will be taking the ball. Even Lorenzo is shocked that he's only worth 50 million. Isagi now has the ball. While running away from Baru, Isagi says that his body is now able to keep up a lot better with his thought. We can assume that Isagi went through some intense training with Kunigami before this match, as Isagi went to Kunigami for help some chapters ago. After that, we get these incredible panels with pieces flying everywhere, and Isagi saying that it's time to score of the counterattack. And who else would assist Isagi if it weren't for our favorite shark boy Corona, who alongside Isagi trades passes. Yukimiya is looking at the duo from afar as he says that attack with a counterattack of their own. With Lorenzo so high up the field, the Ubers still haven't organized their defense, and right now, Isagi and Corona is able to steamroll through the field. It seems like Isagi has really worked hard to improve for this match, because his passing drills with Corona have really paid off. However, Isagi will get into some trouble, as Yukimiya says that he will change his target to him and tells him to not take any hard feelings, as this is their team's philosophy, devouring each other to create chemical reactions. However, Yukimiya is once again catching another L as Isagi uses Yukimiya to get behind one of the Uber's defender. Yukimiya compliments Isagi and says that his dribblings have drastically improved. However, it's more than that, because to get past the incoming defender, Isagi deliberately used Yukimiya as bait. Isagi finally has the thing which has been holding him down, a body to maximize his vision. As Isagi is running away, Yukimiya says that he is still evolving and that it's expected of his rival. After that, we see Kaiser, who has his eyes on Isagi and is probably thinking of a way to steal the ball away, but that quickly goes into ruin as Lorenzo blocks him. And I find it so funny that it's almost more players of Bastard München who is trying to get the ball from Isagi than the Ubers. After that, we finally get to see Nico, and I wish the author showed him more because I love his character. Anyway, he says that since Lorenzo is marking Kaiser, he won't be able to fall back, and if they get hit on the counter in this situation, their first priority as defenders isn't to steal the ball, but rather focus on slowing down their attack. A defensive formation designed to stop a quick counter-attack by slowing down the pace of the game. However, their plan gets quickly thrown to the side, as Isagi isn't slowing down, but instead charging in. And Nico quickly realizes that Isagi and Corona knew that they were going to defend like this, so they have no choice but to challenge them in a speed battle. Isagi slips between Nico and Aiku, and is now headed to the goal. Corona passes him, but just then, Isagi gets accompanied. And of course, it isn't anyone from the Ubers, but instead, his own teammate again. But this time, it's Ness who tells Isagi that in the event of Lorenzo getting hold of Kaiser, it's then his job to crush Isagi by any means necessary. He says that after studying Isagi's direct shot, he realized that it's trash, a defective shot that he can only shoot with his right foot. Ness has a smug look on his face as he says that once he knocks Isagi off balance, he's finished. But Isagi asks him to think again as he uses his left foot, creating a lefty shot which goes right into the net, shocking everyone. But most importantly, giving Bastard München a 1-goal lead, the one who is most stunned of them all is Ness, who in shock asks Isagi what he did. After that, we can see different families all over the world being ecstatic over Isagi. However, I want to quickly focus in on this guy. If you have forgotten, then this was Isagi's first true fan. He came up to Isagi after the U20 match and asks him to shake his hand, which was so adorable. I really like how the Blue Lock authors keep on showing him in different places. It makes it feel much more special and reminiscing in some kind of way. Anyway, back to the game. Ness is almost too stunned to speak. His voice is shaky when he confronts Isagi. He tells Isagi that it's impossible, an unknown attacking pattern, and shot a direct shot with his left foot while there was no data on it. Ness is furious as he screams at Isagi, asking him what he's done in the last few days. After that, we go back 5 days in time, when Isagi went to Kunigami for help. Thanks to Igarashi, Isagi realized that his direct shot's weakness is that he can only shoot it accurately with his right foot. However, Kunigami became two-footed after he copied Noel Noah's physical abilities, and then Isagi asks him to teach him. Kunigami is a bit freaked out, calling Isagi clingy and disgusting. Isagi is still determined, so he follows him and asks Kunigami to let him train together so that Isagi can study his body. Kunigami stops and says absolutely not, and that Isagi will just end up destroying his specs. Kunigami tells him that he became two-footed to survive the wild card. Even so, it only worked because he had the necessary physical attributes to pull it off. If Isagi were to try copying Kunigami, he would end up bulking up in the wrong place and then lose his body's balance, meaning that there's only a greater chance that his performance will deteriorate. As Kunigami walks out, he tells Isagi to forget about shortcuts to become stronger, telling him that if he goes for that route, he's finished as a football player. Isagi thinks that Kunigami just warned him, saying that Kunigami is still a good guy after all, before going after him. As they are going around the corner, they meet up with Chigiri, who tells Kunigami that he finally found him. Isagi asks Chigiri what he's doing inside the German stratum, and Chigiri says that he came to see Kunigami, saying that he basically ghosted Chigiri during and after the game. While Chigiri is talking to Kunigami, he just walks away telling him to piss off, and that he doesn't have anything to tell him. However, Chigiri doesn't give up and speaks his mind. He says that he understands that Kunigami has changed. His playstyle and aura are totally different from before. However, it isn't only Kunigami who's changed. Chigiri tells him that from now on, he will be keeping an eye on Kunigami and asks him to do the same. But just then, another one sneaks his head around the door opening. It's Bachira who asks if this is some kind of class reunion. Before rushing over and saying that he will join in, he throws the football in Isagi's face. Bachira says that he saw the Bastard vs Manshine match on the monitor, saying that it was awesome and that they were all dripping ego juice from their body. Now I'm not even going to try speculating what ego juice is, so let's just leave that to Bachira. He continues telling them that Kunigami's goal and Isagi's movements were totally insane, not to mention how crazy Chigiri's goal was. Anyway, he originally came over to ask Kunigami if they could train together. While this is happening, we can see Isagi cooking up some nasty piece for him to evolve, as he looks at Bachira and Chigiri and says that it's not like they totally changed their playstyle. Rather, they made minor adjustments that further maximized and enhanced their strongest weapons. So maybe there's no need to change everything. Isagi was too hung up on being two-footed, while what he really wanted was to customize his weapon for his left foot. While Isagi continues to level up his primary weapon, the direct shot, and if he can manage to just acquire a secondary weapon, then it will complete everything. And after that, the four of them start a 2 vs 2 match against each other, which makes me so nostalgic back to the start of the series, when they really were acting like this. After that, we are right off the bat greeted by Aiku, who looks at Isagi amazed. He says that a lefty direct shot is amazing, calling it a cheat code. However, it's impossible to become two-footed in just a couple of days, meaning that Isagi's lefty shot has to have some kind of weakness to it. Lorenzo goes forward toward Isagi, pointing his finger at him. He says that he's taken a liking to Isagi and that he definitely isn't worth 50 million. He tells Isagi that he's now considered an ace like Kaiser, and the man himself, Isagi, coldly tells him to be sure not to pick the wrong guy to mark, ending it by calling Lorenzo a zombie bastard. After that, Lorenzo walks past him with a menacing aura, telling him to not get cocky after scoring one lucky goal, also making some kitty noises, and I'm all for it. He smiles and tells the Ubers that it's time to get to work, and with that, the game restarts. Isagi thinks that it's time to focus, try to steal the ball again, and go and score his second goal. But he quickly realizes that Lorenzo isn't moving up. As Nico and Sendo are trading passes, Isagi notices that the speed of their offense is slower, saying that they're prioritizing possession and slowly inching their way up the field. It's like they are waiting for the right time to flip their switch. However, Isagi says that as long as he can manage to keep track of Baru's heavy offensive, he can manage to devour them. Just then, we get a flashback to the first time the players met Snuffy. Both Nico and Sendo say that he's a very carefree and laid-back master. Before they start, Snuffy has a question prepared. He asks the players what football means to them. Sendo is first up and says that it's his dream. Ryu quickly comes after, saying that it's everything, and Aiku says that it's something he could bet his entire life on. But when Snuffy then asks what they would do if they couldn't turn pro, the players get silent. Snuffy continues, asking them what they would have if football was taken away from them, saying that there's nothing wrong with devoting yourself to football. Even so, injuries and setbacks do happen. So what would they do if one day, for some reason, they were no longer able to play football? They still stay silent, and Snuffy tells them that those who can't answer this question will forever be dreamers and amateurists. However, for a professional, winning is both a duty and an obligation. Through winning, they are able to earn money and put food on the table. And then he tells them what football really is, saying that football is a job, nothing less, nothing more. He tells them to think of clubs as corporations. Based on that, games are business deals, and the players are employees. Snuffy then says that he's taken the liberty and time to study the data of every single player. Everything from the game plan, offense, defense, and situational football, and all of the various strategies now lay right in front of them. Sendo is right off the bat ecstatic, saying that it's amazing. Meanwhile, Aiku asks Snuffy if he managed to come up with all of these strategies himself. He did, and says that if they remember all the strategies he came up with and execute them flawlessly, they will win. After that, we see that the players under Snuffy's command are almost acting like soldiers. Before we leave the flashback, Nico has some additional comments to make. He says that all of Snuffy's strategies make full use of their individual capabilities. Snuffy even prepared different variations depending on the lineup. Then we get a rare panel of Nico showing his eyes. Let's be honest, these panels are becoming like rare Pokemon cards that you have to capture. Anyway, he says that if they manage to survive here, then they will without a doubt be exponentially stronger, which pumps out all of the Blue Lock players. And with that, we get back into the intense game between the Ubers and Bastard München. Up to this point, Isagi has carefully studied Baru's movements and found the perfect place where he can intercept. He goes up, and as he thought, he easily gets the ball. But just then, Baru commands the players to get Isagi. Sendo, alongside two no-names, goes for Isagi's neck. Isagi is caught off guard, saying that a high press happened the second he managed to steal the ball. However, it doesn't stop there, as it's a multi-coordinate press as well. Sharkboy tries to help, but is of no use, as Isagi has no time to use metavision. And just then, Nico comes in and sweeps the ball away, telling Isagi that he fell for their trap. As Nico is running away, Isagi is left behind, thinking about what just happened. Was the whole sequence just a part of their plan? Attack slowly through low-risk strategies, and if the opponent manages to steal the ball away, steal it back right away with a fast, coordinated high press. And after regaining possession, take full advantage of the short counter. Finally, he says that it's like all of those 11 players are one huge organism. And to end it off, we see Snuffy with his big-ass nose, telling Ubers to advance. And they do just that as they are coming in full force against Bastard München's defense. The Ubers are passing the ball between each other so much that Gagamaru has no idea who it will be that takes the final shot. But in the end, the ball falls to Baru. Gagamaru is sure that he will shoot, and Yukimiya even comes to back him up. But to their surprise, Baru actually passes to Nico, who then makes a switch with Sendao. But suddenly, the ball falls into the midst of it all, and Gagamaru can't see anything that is going on, making him clueless as to who has the ball. But then suddenly he sees the ball going at the goal. But you know how Blue Lock likes to do it, so we jump straight into a flashback before we are able to see what actually happens. As Snuffy was having his speech about football being a job, Baru suddenly walks away and calls it a weak philosophy, saying that he didn't come here to play a weak-willed brand of football. Even as Baru is leaving, Snuffy just says that he's interesting. After that, we get into the training field where Baru is training his shooting skills. As he's training, Snuffy comes by and tells Baru that his physical specs are top-notch, saying that Baru is the most suited striker in the Ubers, and therefore Snuffy asks him to, even if he's faking it, just try his football philosophy. However, Baru is getting second-hand embarrassment from Snuffy. Baru tells him that he refuses, and that football isn't a job for him, but a way for him to become a king. After that, he's going to conquer the world his way, and that's why if Snuffy wants to utilize him, he has to adjust to Baru's philosophy, which I'm not even sure if he's got one. Snuffy just starts to laugh before quickly taking the ball from Baru, which shocks him. As Baru is trying to take the ball back, Snuffy tells him that before he was a footballer, he was just a person, and if you can't understand the difference, then he's just an amateur after all. Snuffy just keeps on embarrassing Baru as he shouts about becoming the world's #1 striker. Then Snuffy throws in a curveball and says that there was a time when he was just like Baru, getting by life solely off his talent, and alongside him, he had his best friend. Together, they took full advantage of the wealth and luxuries that come with becoming a superstar player. They fully believed that they were going to be kings of the football world, but they fucked up. They skipped training and their skills diminished, suffered injuries due to overwork, and then lost their place in the starting 11 followed by several scandals. However, when a man falls, it only takes an instant. Baru screams and asks what some loser's story has to do with him. Snuffy tells Baru that finally his spirit shattered and his best friend killed himself. This finally makes Baru shut up, as Snuffy asks him if he will be able to love himself when he's no longer viewed as a genius. Snuffy tells Baru to value his life, and once again asks him to work together to succeed as Uber's next king. However, even then Baru refuses, saying that he isn't like Snuffy's friend who killed himself, and that he doesn't want a crown that's been handed down to him. As he leaves, he sees the whole Uber squad listening in from outside. Aiku is shocked at Baru refusing Snuffy's golden opportunity, while Baru is shocked at how they can believe Snuffy's crap. Baru then goes into his meditation room, where he puts on a relaxing forest. However, it quickly gets changed to a movie by Lorenzo, who comes in with a bag of popcorn. Lorenzo tells Baru that Snuffy has taken an interest in him. Even so, Baru isn't concerned by it, and is more concerned by Lorenzo spilling popcorn on the floor. Lorenzo says that Snuffy wins trophies for every team he plays for, and that's how he gained the name as the Crown Messenger. However, that's not the real reason why he plays football. The reason why is that he aims to win in all the Big 5 leagues, to then achieve the dream he once shared with his best friend. And the series he's left is the Italy League with the Ubers. When he's managed to win a trophy with the Ubers, he will move on to becoming a coach, and that's why he's looking for a striker to succeed him. Baru is still not interested in their offer, so Lorenzo tries a different approach, which is to show off his golden teeth while having a proud look on his face. Lorenzo tells Baru that he used to live in a shithole when he was little, and after his parents abandoned him, he survived on the streets by swindling people out of their money. He was on the verge of dying, but that's when Snuffy came forward to him and asked him to play football with him. Lorenzo didn't believe him, so he challenged Snuffy to give him golden teeth, which Snuffy did immediately. Baru is quickly getting bored and asks Lorenzo what his point with all of this is. And Lorenzo tells Baru that his point is that Snuffy isn't the type of guy who would abandon the less fortunate, and that he's crazy enough to give them a future. After that, Snuffy enters the room and tells them that it's time for training, and Lorenzo for some reason quickly turns into a dog. As they are leaving, Baru tells them to wait, and that he will work with Snuffy, not as his successor, but that he will become a striker that surpasses him, telling Snuffy that his job is to help Baru become the king of the football world, which was a deal Snuffy couldn't refuse. He tells Baru that from now on, the Ubers will act as his arms and legs, and that their strategies will only be centered around him. That's why Baru's job will be to refine and evolve his ability as a goal hunter, especially his 1v1s against the goalkeeper, starting with his mid-range curve shot from 28 meters, which are already top-notch. However, that shot is easy to stop if one can figure out its timing and motion, and that it definitely won't work against a world-class goalkeeper. After that, we get back into the game, where Baru is moving swiftly around on the field. The players have now managed to block Gagamaru's view, which gets them a spilled second blind spot. However, by the time he realizes it, it will already be too late, as Baru has already managed to get away a shot against him, which flawlessly goes in and makes the scores 1-1. And let us just take a moment to appreciate how cool this panel looks, with both Sendu and Nico coming to celebrate with Baru. Baru looks with an intense look at Isagi and asks him what's wrong, and wonders if that's all Isagi's got. On the other hand, we have Isagi over here who's totally mind-blown by Baru's goal, saying that the Ubers came up with a game plan designed to crush him, and as soon as they got the ball, they went on a furious counter. They didn't even leave a chance for Isagi to stop them, as they managed to execute their plan perfectly. However, it's more than that, as they were in perfect sync, which isn't something that can be taught easily, and on top of that, the timing to know when to execute their plan, saying that it's impossible to pull this off without some hardcore training, as he finally understands that this is the backbone of the Uber's strength. But even with all that, it still doesn't fully explain Baru's shot, which Gagamaru didn't even have time to react to. But that means that they somehow threw off his timing, and if that's the case, then that means that Baru didn't shoot when he wanted to, and that he patiently waited for the exact moment they threw off Gagamaru's timing, and because of that, he was able to utilize his vision. And of course, with Baru's shooting ability, if he manages to throw off the goalkeeper's timing, it opens up a chance to mass-produce a goal at an efficient rate. And with that, Isagi realizes that Baru has managed to achieve a whole new set of eyes, which he calls the Predator Eyes. After that, we get to Ness looking at both Isagi and Baru, while being angry at himself that he hasn't managed to do anything this whole game. However, that's when Kaiser goes forward to him and tells him to stop with his miserable look, as he tells Ness that their true target is Lorenzo, and that if they manage to defeat Lorenzo, then they will win, and Ness gladly take up on that challenge. After that, we get to the superior duo, where Corona is asking Isagi how many more strategies he thinks that Ubers have under their sleeve. However, even Isagi has no idea, but he knows that to win this game, they have to stick to Noah's plan and focus on winning their 1v1 duels. And with that, the game starts again. Ness and Kaiser are passing around as always. Ness says that the two of them can dominate the defensive and middle third. However, it's on the attacking third where it gets tricky. Even so, Ness will do everything in his power to help Kaiser score. But just then, Lorenzo goes to cover them. Even so, Kaiser says that they are fine, as it's a 2v1. So Kaiser passes Ness and sprints behind Lorenzo, awaiting a pass from Ness, which he gets. However, someone else reaches it first, and that one is the stylish master himself, Ryu, who jumps up and heads away the ball. The ball is heading back to Ness and Lorenzo, but someone else interferes. It's Isagi who tells Lorenzo that he wasn't good enough. Isagi was able to see everything that played out perfectly. He says that in the full of this game's chaotic flow, he's able to take control of the 1v1 situations, and ends it by saying that his metavision has gotten better. Even so, his happiness quickly comes to a stop as Nico comes out of nowhere and kicks away the ball from Isagi. Isagi falls to the ground and says that he's amazed that Nico was able to stop him. After that, Nico tells him that it's to be expected that as his vision and football IQ are all top-notch. However, the same goes for Nico, as he calls them two birds of a feather, which I can't figure out if it sounds cool or just corny. Anyway, that's where it clicks for Isagi, as he thinks that Nico also has acquired metavision. However, when Isagi confronts Nico about it and asks him if he uses metavision, Nico is suddenly confused and asks what metavision is. Isagi explains that metavision is a specific way to use their vision, which lets them capture everything that's happening around them with their peripheral vision, which then lets you simultaneously process and analyze everyone's movements on the field. Nico gets the hang of it, but tells Isagi that all he did was track the ball while keeping an eye on his movements, and since he saw Isagi and the ball in a dangerous spot, he dashed forward, even though it meant going against their game plan. Isagi is shocked, thinking that Nico subconsciously used metavision, and that his brain and vision are gonna evolve to a whole new level. After that, Aiku comes by complimenting Nico's play. However, Isagi's teammate isn't as happy with him as Aiku is with Nico, as Reichi comes and shouts at Isagi for losing the ball. After that, Isagi tries to figure out how many of the players here can use metavision. He concludes that Kaiser, Nico, himself, and maybe Lorenzo are the only ones able to use it, as Baru has a different kind of vision. Isagi then quickly becomes Professor Isagi, as he tries to explain the different visions, starting with metavision. Metavision grasps the overall flow of the game, and all the information that's circling within it. Since he can use it everywhere on the field, he pretty much has the ability to predict the future. On the other hand, Baru's Predator Eye is focused on the 1v1 duel with the goalkeeper for the sole purpose of scoring a goal. Even though they're both strikers, depending on how they use their eyes and vision, the information that they pick up, analyze, and act on is completely different. And with that, he begins inputting all of his new information to probably use it in the future. But before he's done, Raichi and Yukimiya scream at him to stop spacing out, and that the game is about to restart. However, Isagi is like fuck that, and thinks some more before starting, as he says that on top of all that he went through before, both of their teams have two totally different philosophies and playstyles. Ubers plays like one huge organism, with their unity, discipline, and coordination, while Bastard München plays like a chaotic fluid, multi-faced organisms, which is being spearheaded by him and Kaiser. Everyone on the field understands this, and that's why they are probably thinking about their next move, and what's risky, and how they can make an impact. Finally realizing that this is how it feels to be playing in a world-class football game. However, that also means that the next play and the next goal will definitely be the turning point, and that the player who manages to tilt this situation in their favor will undoubtedly dominate this game as its game changer. While Kaiser is waiting for the game to start, he's thinking that Lorenzo is too much in the way, even saying that he's gotten stronger since the last time he faced him. Because of Lorenzo, Kaiser can't move freely the way he wants to, and right now, it's obvious that Isagi has a much easier time moving around. While he's thinking, Ness quickly comes running, asking Kaiser what they are supposed to do, but Kaiser just tells him to shut up, telling him to move as they have practiced, and to believe in Kaiser, because for him, nothing is impossible. And with that, Grim finally throws in the free throw, and the ball is going to Ness's legs. However, right then, Kunigami comes in his way, and pushes him aside, telling them to not forget about the Dark Horse. Kunigami is running at full speed against the Ubers players, even styling on someone which honestly looks so clean. Isagi is looking from the side, and says that Kunigami is planning on going solo. However, that's impossible with Kunigami's specs, and even if Isagi went in to help, he wouldn't pass him. Isagi has no choice but to try and steal the ball in the penalty area, and says that he can see clearly what he needs to do, but Nico is able to do the same thing, which makes it troublesome. Nico is focused on always having his eyes on Isagi, and says that this new metavision is amazing. Instead of solely focusing on the ball, and instead seeing over the entire field and catching every piece of information circulating within it, Nico notices that Isagi is aiming for the same spot as he is, and it ends up with the three of them going for the same spot. As they are going to the ball, Nico says that it's a 50-50 chance for him. However, the percentage quickly turns to 0 as Reichi comes in his way and stops him. This gives Isagi the chance to sweep in and steal the ball. As he's running, he states that Nico's meta vision is still incomplete, saying that he was too focused on predicting the future that he diverted most of his attention on tracking him and the ball, which made him fail to realize that Reichi has positioned himself behind him and was waiting to ambush him. Isagi gets away from them and sees that there are only 2 defenders standing in his way, and he gets over the first one with the help of Corona. However, out of nowhere comes Aiku. Isagi goes into his lefty shot position and is ready to fire off an outstanding shot when Aiku sees through his bluff and tells Isagi that his lefty shot isn't 100% complete yet and destroys his chance. Isagi says that he failed and that he couldn't score after all. Right when he is at the brink of defeat, Yukimiya comes screaming his name and tells him to pass him, kind of giving us a flashback to the Manshine City match. Both Aiku and Isagi are stunned. Isagi says that Yukimiya managed to fill in the space on the right which Kunigami left, complimenting his position and calling him a godsend. However, Isagi is still stubborn and says that he can still shoot, but he quickly starts to think more thoroughly. He thinks that if he were to lose the ball here, then they would get hit by a counter by the Ubers. And with that in mind, he has no other choice than to pass, as it's the more rational option. Isagi sends an amazing pass, but as the ball is flying to Yukimiya, someone comes before him. It's the legendary defender Lorenzo, who says that he will be taking this pass. This really shows just how amazing Lorenzo really is. He was able to foresee what Isagi would do, and then went to stop him. Even so, his greed made him oblivious, as Kaiser comes before him and says that he finally took his eyes off his price. Kaiser also says that he's been waiting for this moment. Isagi is amazed, and all of his thoughts start to lose grip as they fall out. Isagi says that Kaiser got him, saying that Kaiser managed to outread his entire thought process to then use him to get Lorenzo off him. Kaiser was able to see everything, and if that wasn't enough, then everybody out on the field got metadated. And can we just take 1 second to appreciate how cool that sounds? I can't wait till someone says that expression to Isagi. However, it still isn't just a free road for Kaiser as Sendo comes to stop him, saying that in these situations, it's his job to press. Even so, Kaiser turns into a cat and jumps over Sendo's leg. But Sendo's attack wasn't in vain as he bought Aiku and Ryu some time to come and cut off his shooting angle. Ryu comes from behind and flips Kaiser upside down, and Ness once again shows his real identity as a dirty dog as he's right away starting to complain and asks for a penalty. However, as Kaiser is in the sky, he tells them to eat shit and calls them losers before doing a Kaiser impact mid-air. Kaiser's shot bounces under Aiku and goes into the goal, giving Bastard München a 1-goal lead. Kaiser's goals are one of the most mind-blowing goals I've ever seen. It's definitely a top 3 for me. But please tell me what you thought about it in the comments. It kinda looks like Yukimiya's goal, but on steroids. Isagi is almost too stunned to speak after Kaiser's goal, saying that Kaiser managed to do a Kaiser impact in that position, and not to mention that he nutmegged Aiku off a kind of bicycle kick. With this high-level chess match and a player's rapid evolution, Kaiser by himself managed to destroy all that, saying that Kaiser is this game's ultimate game changer. After that, Kaiser's lackey, or excuse me, Ness is of course rushing over to congratulate Kaiser on his wonderful goal. Ness tells Kaiser that his goal was mind-blowing. He continues hyping up Kaiser and throws some shots at Isagi for no particular reason. However, when Ness is done, Kaiser just tells him to shut up. Kaiser says that the goal Ness was so proud of was nothing more than a shitty goal. For Kaiser to get Lorenzo off him and score, he had no other choice but to resort to that tactic. Ness has a shaky voice as he still tries to argue, saying that Kaiser's goal was literally amazing. This makes Kaiser's blood boil even more as he asks Ness if he thinks that he would be happy scoring a goal by feeding on Isagi's scraps like a hyena. Explain to Ness that his last goal was entirely started by Isagi. Once he got his hands on the ball, Uber's defense moved to stop him. And as a result, Lorenzo was forced to leave Kaiser to deal with Isagi's pass, which was supposed to go to Yukimiya. Even though Kaiser scored the goal in the end, it doesn't change the fact that the leading figure was undoubtedly Isagi. And that's something that Kaiser will never forgive himself for scoring a goal like that, but ending it with looking at Isagi's eyes and saying that the last goal will be his. On the other hand, we have Isagi who says that Kaiser is a goddamn genius. He managed to outread his entire thought process, but that's not even the most shocking part, as that goal was mega world-class level. You can try 10,000 times and probably would never be able to replicate it. Everyone on his field, or even the entire world, won't be able to pull off that level of shot. Kaiser really is the genius that he needs to emulate, and the rival that he needs to take down if he wants to become the best player in the world. Even so, in that last moment, Isagi says that Kaiser was definitely keeping track of him, and that if he hadn't, then that goal would be impossible. It's starting to come to a point where Kaiser needs to constantly keep track on Isagi to score. This means that slowly but surely Isagi is getting inside Kaiser's head. He ends it by saying that this will be fun as he has a psychopathic face on him. And I'm wondering, I've already said this before, but do you guys think that the other players on the field just randomly see Isagi smiling out of nowhere and look like a psychopath? Anyway, Isagi gets out of his psychopathic state and sees Sendu down on the ground with a cramped leg. However, he isn't the only one, as Corona also has fallen victim to one. Isagi quickly asks him if he's okay and starts helping him stretch. While he is stretching Corona's majestic leg, he thinks that since Corona doesn't have metavision, he's constantly giving it his all to keep up with Isagi. We also see that the Ubers goalkeeper has managed to get an injury and even might have suffered serious rib injuries, which is nothing fun at all. After that, we get to the bench and see Snuffy putting on his headband as he tells Fukaku to get ready. And with that, Snuffy and Fukaku get up from their seats and subs in, which forces Noah to sub in as well, as he tells Snuffy not to make his job any harder than it has to be. And just like that, both of the masters have come onto the field and are ready to give it their all. Pray for my boy Corona. May him rest in peace. Isagi thinks that since they subbed in players due to injuries, the situation on the field will definitely change, and says that he needs to capture the future faster than anyone else, as his biggest desire is to score another goal. After that, we get back to the bench and see Hiroi looking at Isagi with big eyes as he asks him to take him with him. Hiroi is looking at Isagi while saying that his heart won't stop pounding and that this is the high-intensity level of football that he wants to be a part of. Both Isagi and Kaiser are set on being the ones to score the last goal and seal up the deal. But just then, Baru asks Snuffy if they're going to do that. You know that. And Snuffy tells him that they are. And just like that, the game restarts. Isagi notices directly that the Ubers formation has changed, and that both Nico and Lorenzo both moved up, and also committed most of their players forward. Now that the Ubers have incorporated Nico's vision and playmaking with Lorenzo's outstanding dribbling in the middle, the ball doesn't stick as much, and the tempo has gotten noticeably faster. Even so, Isagi can't allow himself to be swept away by their fast tempo, and has to find the perfect spot where he can intercept, and he finally finds it. He goes to take the ball as it's headed to Lorenzo, however Snuffy reaches it before him, telling him that it is close, even borderline too close. He looks with the meta vision eyes, and says that the rumors are true after all, and that Isagi reads the game well. However, Isagi is in a shocked state, saying that Snuffy positioned himself to prevent any turnovers from happening. But not just that, Isagi also says that he got metadated by Snuffy, and I can't get enough of that expression. Even though he couldn't get the ball, Noah comes and tells him that he's going well, and tells Isagi that they will trap him, and Isagi is extremely happy that Noah linked up with his movements. However, even with Noah and Isagi, they don't stand a chance against Snuffy, who's keeping the ball as safe as a fortress. And before they know it, he's already passed away the ball to Lorenzo, who passes it along to Nico, who gets some competition as Ness comes in his way. Before Ness can do anything useful for once, Nico has already passed away the ball to Snuffy, who's still battling Noah. Snuffy encourages his team and tells them to not even give Bastard München the slightest chance to think. Snuffy sees Baru in the box and legit passes the ball on a player from Bastard München to then get it to Baru, which has to be one of the coldest passes I've ever seen. Baru gets the ball, and Gagamaru knows that he's in big trouble as Baru is filled with options and Gagamaru has no way of stopping all of them. Baru shoots, but gets double blocked by both Kaiser and Isagi, who fall on the ground with their legs crossed. How cute. Isagi says that it was good that they managed to hold on, however he's disappointed that Kaiser managed to see the same thing as he did. Even so, they are in a really bad spot and are barely hanging on by the skin of their teeth. Not to mention that it's obvious that the player who's controlling the game is none other than Snuffy, who's already got another attacking pattern for Ubers to try out, and Isagi is stuck trying to think of a way to beat him. Snuffy is still in possession of the ball as he and the Ubers continue to advance. Isagi thinks that they might be done for and that their defense is barely hanging on, as he wonders what kind of brain Snuffy has. Snuffy passes to Lorenzo, and Isagi notices right away this is once again another attacking pattern, and if he were to go in blindly, he would get shut down instantly, so he has no choice but to carefully observe their movements and find a way to crush Snuffy's world-class tactic. Lorenzo passes another one from the Ubers, who are continuing their attack on the left side, which leaves everyone worried about a possible cross. This makes them forget about the real threat, who is Snuffy, and he's carefully slipping through their blind spots. The pass is going to Snuffy, who luckily gets some trouble by Kaiser, who was able to see that Snuffy was wide open. Even so, he doesn't stand a chance, as Snuffy jumps up and heads away the ball over Kaiser's head. The ball has a crazy bounce with it as it's going to Nico, who's in a duel with Noah. And I just found it really funny that Noah called him Pipsqueak. It's just something about that word. Anyway, Nico tells Noah that everything is going as planned as he makes a backheel pass to Baru, who's coming at an incredible speed behind them. Even so, Isagi is able to see through it and manages to come and stop him at the last second. The ball goes out of bounds, which gives Ubers a throw-in. Isagi knows that they are only holding on thanks to Noah, Kaiser, and himself being able to read their attacks. Since the three of them are covering the team's blind spots, they haven't conceded a goal, but even with the three of them covering, they're completely on the defensive and are barely able to hold their ground. Right now, he doesn't have the slightest image of stealing the ball and attacking, not to mention that Snuffy is completely different from Chris and Lavinho, who are just focused on scoring their own goals. Meanwhile, Snuffy is over here doing everything he can to maximize the effectiveness of his team's strategies. He's not using his superb body balance, physicality, or goal-scoring abilities as a striker. Rather, he's using his abilities to help his team score goals with the tactics they came up with. And finally, Isagi says that he's got it, Snuffy's thought process, and that this guy is just making sure that the rest of the team follows their tactics, like a watchman. It's no wonder that he can outread Isagi's metavision, since Snuffy's focused on surveying the game, and it's easy to contain a guy who's selfishly trying to steal the ball to score goals. However, he can't keep playing defensively and barely solving their tactics, and he's got to seize the initiative and force Snuffy to react to him, saying that if he can't see further into the future, then he can't win. Just then, Noah comes by and asks Isagi if it's hard playing against Snuffy. Isagi says that it is, and Noah explains that the core of Snuffy's playstyle is Jujutsu, which originated from Japan, which Snuffy has managed to incorporate into his playstyle. The core training, biomechanics, and close combat. Snuffy incorporates all of the Jujutsu principles and fuses them with football. Thanks to that, Snuffy's already world-class hold-up plays and ball retention skills became even more refined, not to mention his passing and scoring. Noah tells Isagi that strictly from a striker's perspective, he's stronger than Snuffy, but from a round perspective, he's the more versatile and flexible football, calling Snuffy the best player in the world based on overall abilities. After that, Isagi finally asks the question, which will determine the rest of the game, as he asks Noah how they will defeat him. However, Noah says with a funny face that he's clueless, saying that Ubers are moving as a team and efficiently launching one attack after another. Meanwhile, Bastard München is disorganized since most of them can't predict their plays. Even though Noah has no clue how to beat Snuffy, he asks Isagi to hold out for 3 minutes and wait for the masters to forcefully leave. As Noah walks away, he tells Isagi that sometimes being patient will open up a path. This sentence sparks something in Isagi. Noah tells Isagi to stop spacing out and that the match will continue, but when he looks back, he can see Isagi already sprinting away. Isagi thinks that with this new way, he can surpass Snuffy as he runs to Raichi and asks him if he's willing to die. Ubers is beginning to start their throw-in. Meanwhile, we see Isagi and Raichi arguing with each other. Drago throws the ball to Nico, who passes it straight back to him, and he then gives it to Lorenzo. As the Ubers are advancing on the field, Raichi comes before Snuffy. Before we can see any more of it, we finally get back and see what it was that Isagi told Raichi. Isagi told Raichi to man-mark Snuffy, making it a duel between the two. Raichi couldn't believe it, telling Isagi not to say something so nonchalantly, and that it was that easy, he would already be doing it. Isagi says that he's right, but what Isagi wants him to do isn't the typical man-marking. It's only limited to an area of 2 meters radius half circle, which in other words just means a protractor man-marking. Isagi wants Raichi to constantly position himself in front of Snuffy inside of that 2-meter radius, and if the ball comes inside that area, he's free to go and steal the ball. But the most important part isn't taking the ball away from Snuffy, but keeping Snuffy in front of him within that 2-meter radius no matter what. We get back to the game, and we see Raichi doing just that. As Raichi is keeping a close watch on Snuffy, we can hear Isagi's thoughts, as he says that this strategy is riding on Raichi's grit, stamina, and his ability to win 1 versus 1s. And if they screw up, Raichi will be a laughingstock, and his value will plummet. But if he somehow manages to contain Snuffy, then Raichi Jingo will instantly be a household name. Lorenzo passes the ball to Snuffy, which makes Raichi activate his sexy protractor mode, which even gets Snuffy to admit that Raichi is troublesome. Snuffy goes forward and pulls out some extremely cool dribbles, which almost catches Raichi off guard. But Raichi can hold on, as he knows that the main objective isn't to steal the ball. Raichi is doing all that he can to assert his position in Snuffy's radius. As Snuffy tries to push Raichi away, he can't, which makes him admit that Raichi's got a strong core on him. As Isagi is watching from the side, he says that this is perfect, telling him that just not getting beat is already a job well done, and with Raichi constantly in Snuffy's face, they can now limit a lot of his options. They have to consider a myriad of options, and it's impossible to predict the future. But if Raichi can limit even one or two of Snuffy's options, then the number of the attacking patterns Snuffy can use will decrease. Snuffy passes the ball, and the Ubers just pass the ball around for a bit, while Isagi thinks that by using the process of elimination, the player most likely to kickstart their attack is Lorenzo. Isagi was spot on as he came in between Lorenzo and the ball just in the last minute, which even shocked Lorenzo and showed that Raichi and Isagi's remote tag team defense was successful. But out of nowhere, a hand comes in Isagi's way. It's Aiku who says that this is awesome and that he's totally in the zone now. Aiku explains that if Snuffy gets man-marked, it's his job to recover the loose ball. And with the ball at his feet, he sends it over to Baru with one of the nastiest vertical passes I've ever seen, going past both Ness and Yukimiya. Baru is rushing towards the goal, but for some reason, Gagamaru isn't worried as he says that Isagi has done a good job, and that he doesn't know why, but for some reason this time he will stop Baru. Baru is currently right in front of the goal with the ball at his feet. But that doesn't matter to Gagamaru, who has awakened some kind of sixth sense, or as he calls it, his wild instinct. Baru is getting ready to shoot, but Gagamaru knows that Baru isn't going to shoot just yet, which turns out to be true, as he does a chop feint instead. Gagamaru says that Baru's primary weapon is his right foot mid-range shot, which is why he'll shift the ball onto his right foot. But thanks to Raichi and Isagi slightly delaying the opponent's attack, the Bastard's defense can catch. One of Bastard's defenders is coming at Baru and is trying to stop him, but Gagamaru is still more ready than ever, as he knows that when the moment comes that he can't see Baru's shooting motion is when he will strike. And look at that, Gagamaru was spot on as he shot just when he anticipated it to. And because of that, the man and the myth actually manages to save one of Baru's shot, which is astonishing. Even Corona is shocked to his core by Gagamaru's save. But it's not time for him to relax just yet, as he gets up on his feet right away to then pull all his strength into his arm and throws away the ball up on the field. The throw has such an outstanding power behind it, but it still manages to find its way right to Isagi's foot. Isagi compliments Gagamaru and responds by telling Isagi to just finish it already. And just as he receives the ball, he starts to sprint like never before up on the field alongside Noah and Yukimiya. Isagi thinks that this is their chance as the Ubers committed too many numbers forward and that they are now vulnerable against a counterattack. But it's not going to be an easy road as he has to find the quickest path to the goal. He starts off by passing the ball to Noah, who effortlessly gets behind Nico and another Ubers defender. But out of nowhere, Aiku comes and catches him off guard and slide tackles Noah. Luckily, he had managed to get away a pass to Isagi beforehand, but Corona and Igarashi are shocked that that's not a foul, but Hiyori just tells him to keep on advancing. Isagi thanks Noah for his sacrifice and says that from here on, Yukimiya and he will finish them off. They are exactly 30 meters away from the goal and have to advance a mere 3 more meters to get a chance. Isagi passes Yukimiya, who's surrounded by Uber's defenders, but Yukimiya starts doing some crazy stepovers to save time. Meanwhile, Isagi goes right of him and tries to slip behind Aryu. He gets behind him and tells Yukimiya to sense it and to pass him. Both of them see each other, and Yukimiya manages to get away a lob pass to him, but they aren't exactly in sync, as it wasn't a lob pass as Isagi wanted, as he wanted a fastball sent right to his feet because he knows that at this level a lob pass is far too slow. And Isagi's got a point because Snuffy was able to catch up due to the lob pass, and he comes in between Isagi and the ball and gets rid of it. Because at this incredible level, even a half-second misalignment is a mistake. Isagi is pissed at his golden opportunity. No, his goal vision was dead on, but he was still one step short to outread someone with a world-class football IQ. Snuffy lands on the ground, and as the ball goes to one of the Ubers defenders, all of the Ubers start to advance as they continue another counterattack. Isagi is pissed, saying that just when they were barely managing to steal the ball and attack now, the Ubers are gonna hit them with a new, perfectly designed, multifaceted, highly coordinated counterattack. Isagi knows that he has to stop them, but just how? He doesn't know that for sure, but he knows that he's gotta get back on the defense right away and that he will figure out the rest later. Possession, counterattack, transition. After being foiled so many times, Isagi's painfully aware of how strong these guys are, but just now until Snuffy stopped them, Isagi's strategy and imagination surpassed theirs, and if he and Yukimiya were on the same page, he would have scored. However, what ifs and almosts don't mean anything, and he knows that he's got to stop babying himself. The reality is that he couldn't score, which for a striker is all that matters. It doesn't matter what brilliant idea he comes up with. At this level, if he can't produce results, then all those ideas are garbage. Isagi is determined to steal the ball and finally produce another goal and show the world his ideas. After that, we see how the Ubers are storming up on the field with their passes going flawlessly to each other. Raichi screams that their defense isn't set yet, and Gagamaru is also a bit annoyed as they just got the ball back. Lorenzo passes Baru, who's in sync with the Ubers, and Gagamaru even says that it's way more chaotic than last time. He's stressing as he seriously can't seem to figure out the right timing. But it's fine as Isagi is right by Baru. He thinks that he can just make it, and that Baru can't shoot just yet. He admits that the tactics are on the spot, plus for the sake of winning, everyone has bought into them. But there's no way that you can become the number one playing that brand of football, saying that all that they are doing is mindlessly executing Snuffy's tactics. Since they all are playing to produce some predetermined answer, their individuality is stifled. Isagi can't even believe that Baru would be tamed so easily, and just the thought of Baru becoming the number one striker makes Isagi laugh, saying that Baru has become such a boring and pathetic player. Isagi says this as he goes to stop the ball from Baru's foot. However, to his surprise, Baru actually sidesteps and is still in control of the ball. Everyone in the Uber squad is stunned, saying that Baru went rogue. Baru in the middle of the game just decides to have a chat with Snuffy. He says that if he had shot according to his pretty design, then Isagi would have blocked it. He asks Snuffy how often he has to embarrass himself by these imbeciles. Baru continues saying that Snuffy told him that if he went along with his plan, then Baru would become king. And if Baru plays according to his tactics and fails, then it would be Snuffy's responsibility. Snuffy says that he's right, and that he got 100 million because of it, and asks what it is that Baru is dissatisfied with. Baru then tells him that this is the 4th time that Isagi blocked his shot, saying that he thinks it's enough for him to terminate their agreement. This comes as a shock to everyone who couldn't see this coming. Even Snuffy, Lorenzo, and Isagi are all stunned as Baru's or the king's ego isn't dead, as he tells everyone that he's decided to quit this lousy job. Before we get back into the game, we get a quick flashback to Snuffy and Mick driving along the road. Mick, Snuffy's best friend, says that he doesn't want to be some boring adult who constantly speaks that nonsense. Snuffy agrees and says that the world is their oyster. Mick laughs and says that they are the best in the world after all, and that if they can't become the kings of football, then it's not a life worth living. After that, we are back in the game and we see Baru going alone on the field. His teammates are furious at him, but Baru tells them to shut up and calls them mindless, good-for-nothing, shitty robots. He embarrasses Ness before saying that ever since he teamed up with Snuffy, he's secretly been waiting for the opportunity to crush this stupid team, and that all he wanted was Snuffy's techniques, calling everything else trash. And now that Baru has acquired his predator eyes, he no longer plans to play together. His teammates are only starting to get angrier and angrier, and Bastard sees this as their chance to try and steal the ball from him. Snuffy asks Baru if he wants to defy him this much. Baru tells him that he does, and that the team that Snuffy created, he wants to burn it to the ground, because with Snuffy's tactics, there's no way in hell that he can beat Isagi. And after that, to everyone's surprise, Baru actually passes the ball to Aiku as he tells them all to follow him. Aiku passes the ball to Nico and encourages the whole Ubers to follow Baru's lead. Isagi is shocked, saying that the Ubers are changing their attack, and that Baru hijacked the disciplined and organized team that Snuffy created for himself. Snuffy is in his own battle against Noah, and Noah asks him how it feels to be bitten by his own player for once. Snuffy, with an intense look in his eyes, says that it's awesome. He screams at Baru to show him what he's capable of. He tells him to use the Ubers that he created and try to surpass him with them. But after that, Baru tells Snuffy to shut up, saying that he admits that the team he created is elite and that the environment is a paradise for the average and the mediocre, but there isn't enough despair for Baru to thrive upon. Baru explains that when he lost to Isagi, he hit rock bottom, but only thanks to that he was able to change, become more twisted, and rise from the ashes. But Snuffy's environment is lukewarm, with Snuffy saying that he will provide him with the best options, and if they fail, it's his responsibility as the master. Baru doesn't want to live in a future where he's safe and coddled. If they are going to promote all that hope of becoming the best player in the world, then he will balance it with an equal amount of despair. If he fails, he's okay with the entire world ridiculing him, because only by going beyond the risk of despair that he can drive one's life into madness can he attain ultimate glory. Baru has now come awfully close to the goal, and Isagi says that he's gone completely off the rails, saying that he was waiting for this moment this entire time, forcing everyone to bend to his will and ideas on this high-level world-class stage, which is also the very thing Isagi wants to do. But Baru is just about to accomplish it before Isagi. But there is no way that Isagi will let that happen. He's determined to stop him, to now get devoured by this tyrant. However, Baru is currently in range, and Gagamaru is also on standby. both Kaiser and Isagi come before him to try and block him. Isagi looks into his eyes and says that he's the only person that he'll never want to lose to. With Baru being in control of the ball, as he's standing in front of both Kaiser and Isagi, Isagi thinks that Baru only has two options, which are to either shoot the ball near the post or far from the post. Gagamaru is also already in position, so if he manages to get the timing right, he can stop it. Not to mention that Kaiser is also here, which makes both of Baru's shooting angles weakened, leaving Isagi with a huge 50-50 gamble, but he's still confident that he can crush him. But just then, Baru goes a cut into the side, and as he does that, Snuffy's comes out and asks him what's wrong, telling him to shoot and calling him a delusional wannabe king. Adding on by saying that it would be a shame if Baru was looking for help from Snuffy, and that Baru won't be able to achieve anything if he goes down that route. However, Baru tells him to shut up, and says that since coming to Blue Lock, he's become painfully aware of how he wants to change the world, and if there's no thorny or destructive path for him to walk on, then he will simply just have to create one himself. Isagi is quickly on his tail as he understands that what Baru did before wasn't a cut inside, but instead a way for him to set up his shot. We get back to Baru, who's still rambling on, and says that I don't live for some lukewarm, predetermined future, but instead that he will become king while still being an unruly brat. But in the future, if he still can't become the world's #1 king, then he will at least die an honorable death. Baru doesn't shoot anywhere where Isagi predicted, as he instead shoots the ball under both Isagi's and Kaiser's legs, resulting in a mind-blowing double nutmeg. Gagamaru is shocked as he says that there's no way he can save it, and even Aiku adds on by saying that this wasn't a designed play, but instead a total gamble shot. The ball is quickly arriving at Snuffy. Even so, Baru tells him to move as this is his future. And move he does by putting his strong core against Noah's, which makes him useless, and which also lets the ball go under his leg as well, making an outstanding and honestly mind-blowing triple nutmeg, which Gagamaru understandably has no way of saving as the ball goes in and gives both the Ubers and Baru his second goal of the match. After that, we get to Snuffy taking his car to his best friend Mick Moon's home. As he's walking closer, he remembers Mick's words, saying that they will become the best players in the world, however. When he enters the house, he finds Mick dead on the floor. After that, we get to look into Snuffy's earlier life when he first got paired up with Mick, which none of them was especially happy with. But soon they became good friends, who got to share the feeling and the dream of playing on the field. They quickly feel like they are invisible, and say that there's nothing in the world that they can't have, and that they will definitely become the best players in the world as they win the championship final with the score 2-1. But suddenly it started to go downhill, and Snuffy called on Mick for a meeting, where he said that they had both gotten dropped from the starting lineup. This was to be expected as their performances this season have been nowhere closer to the last year. Mick adds on by saying that they might have fooled around a bit too much, and that it's time to switch the flip and go all in now. However, Snuffy says that it's impossible to do it here, as their relationship with the club, and especially the manager, is beyond repair, telling Mick that they have to start from zero, even if they have to play for some mid-tier team. But Mick finds this ridiculous as he calls him an idiot and says that they are kings who only play for big clubs. Snuffy doesn't listen and says that it's time for him to wake up, telling him that they aren't world-class players anymore, but instead second-rate players. Saying that football is a constantly shifting, harsh, competitive world, it's a world where anyone can become a star overnight, while the opposite can happen as well. New players are always looking for ways that force them to grow up and choose a more robust and smarter future. Mick is quiet for a bit, before he asks what the hell it is that Snuffy is talking about, saying that they still have their promise and dream, which is to win in all of the Big 5 leagues and that they have only won in one so far. Snuffy tells him that it's still highly possible, but later on, even so, Mick just says that he's boring, telling Snuffy that if he's not going to pursue the same dream as he is, then he can get out, which Snuffy does. However, he tells Mick to not come crying back for him later on. Mick just laughs and says that he won't change the way he lives, and says that in any era the people who ultimately change the world aren't the intelligent people who live their lives the right and safe way, but instead some stupid brat who possesses a childish, nonsensical dream. After that, we get back to Snuffy, who is hugging Mick's cold and lifeless body while crying his eyes out, apologizing to Mick that he couldn't share the same dream until the end, saying that they couldn't fulfill their dream together, but that he will continue to dream and make it a reality. And with that, we are back to the Ubers game where everyone is going to celebrate Baru's spectacular goal. Snuffy makes his way over there and compliments his goal, telling Baru that there was no way that he could have predicted that goal and that his ego surpassed every one of his designs and calling it Baru's win. Even so, Baru says that he doesn't need Snuffy's praise or hindsight analysis as their partnership is over. However, there's one thing as a footballer that Baru wants to tell him. Baru says that retiring after this season just because he fulfilled a dream he shared with his dead friend, asking Snuffy if this is his so-called adult way of living. He tells Snuffy that he won't let him just run away and disappear with his precious trophies just yet, not while he is still playing at least. Baru finally takes his hand away from his face and looks Snuffy dead in the eyes, saying that he better not retire and that the two of them still have a score they need to settle. Snuffy is approaching him while laughing, but not just that, as he tells Baru that he won't retire as he's the best player in the world after all. While he's saying this, he also has an internal dialogue with Mick, as he says that with the advice he gave him before, Snuffy can finally believe him now, as until the day he dies, he as well is a goddamn brat who selfishly pursues his dreams. This hypes up all of the Uber players who are extremely happy to know that their captain and also idol won't retire just yet, and it even makes Lorenzo confess his love to Baru. However, it's not over just yet, as both Baru and Isagi are thinking that the last goal will settle this once and for all, as they have an intense look on their face. All of the Ubers players go storming off into Snuffy's arms. However, looking at this from afar, we have Isagi who's pissed to the extreme, screaming his whole heart out. He thinks that Baru stole his spotlight, and that Baru was always aiming for this from the start. The timing to shoot between Isagi's legs to freeze Gagamaru from reacting. Even went as far as hijacking Uber's system for himself and using it to score goals, ending it by saying that Baru managed to completely devour him. But just then, Raichi comes over and apologizes, saying because he was man-marking Snuffy, he couldn't fully contain him. However, Isagi denies that and says that he did his job. He disrupted and eliminated some of their options, and that they just couldn't score and got their ass kicked on the counter because of his tactics. Isagi was so close, but yet he can't see a vision of himself winning against Bauru or Kaiser. Just then, the announcer goes off and says that the star change system is over, and that both masters have to leave the field and make their substitutions. This gives Isagi more puzzle pieces as he knows that the field is just about to shift. Snuffy goes to the benches and picks Sendao for his substitution as he's fully recovered. However, the same thing can't be said about Corona, who is having a hard time standing. And here we have Igarashi really thinking that he will get to be sent in. What a joke. Anyway, Noah says that the next player with the best overall stats is Kiora Jin, and that it's his time to play as a right back. When I first saw this, I was ecstatic. I've been waiting for Kiora for so extremely long that I can't even describe it. However, my happiness quickly shattered as Isagi came over and told Noah that if they do that, then they won't win, and Noah asks him to explain himself. Isagi explains that Kiora is a talented player, and if they look at his individual stats, it's right up there with the rest of the starters, not to mention that his skill set allows him to take over Corona's place at right back seamlessly. However, to defeat the Ubers as they are now, they need a player they can't predict, and someone who can improvise on the fly. And I love how Kiora is just standing there watching them talking about him not getting to play, which is kind of sad. Anyway, back to Isagi, who says that they need a playmaker who can breathe new ideas onto the pitch, otherwise known as a game changer. Noah is quiet before telling him that Bastard has a rule where players are ranked and picked according to their overall numbers. Yet Isagi insists on breaking this rule and using a player with a lower rank. Noah even asks Isagi what his logic is for this argument. Isagi doesn't hold back and says that it's to allow him to score, and says that for him to become this game's hero, he needs Noah to put Hiroyo into the game instead of Kiora. Isagi apologizes to Kiora and says that it's something that he needs to try out with Hiroi, saying that Hiroi is the only player who sees the game as he does, and that he's the only one who can keep up with his vision and thought process. Isagi begs Noah, telling him that he's just one piece away and that he needs his partner to score the winning goal. But even so, Noah refuses. He says that he won't accept such a childish and emotionally driven argument, and that he only accepts rational and logically driven arguments. But that's when Hiroi starts, saying that if they had one more playmaker who sees the game from a bird's eye view, then that means that the player can anticipate Isagi's movements and support him. And if they can manage to do that, then they can minimize the time Isagi spent strategizing and increase his play speed. To the opponents, it would seem like there are two Isagis on the field, saying that he is fine with being Isagi's shadow. Hiroi thinks that after being controlled by his overbearing parents, he was sick and tired of people forcing their expectations on him, but for some weird reason. Right now, this is the first time he's wanted to do something for himself. As he puts his gloves on, he says that he wants to see how he stacks up against the world, and that for the first time in his life, he's going to believe in himself. And with that, Noah finally concedes and accepts their proposal. However, he also says that if they screw up, they will both be dropped from the starting lineup, which they gladly accept. And with Hiroi in his hand, Isagi is fully ready for his last and final piece to seize this game. After that, we see Snuffy sitting down in his master chair while taking his headband off. He tells the Ubers that since Baru already hijacked the team, they shall play through him, while of course using the tactics he's shown them, and lastly encouraging them to make a goal that even him couldn't possibly come up with, which the Ubers players are fully on board with. Snuffy also has a rather sluggish look on his face as he tells Baru that if they lose, he better take full responsibility. This, of course, doesn't face the king, who just tells him to sit quietly on the bench and tremble in fear as he watches Baru surpass him. Baru's words don't only hype up Snuffy, but also the entirety of the Ubers squad, who's now more than ever ready to give it their all. As Noah approaches his seat, he puts his arm on Kyora's shoulder and he promises him that he will play in the next match as he got completely shafted in this game. I honestly still feel so bad for him, but at the same time, I feel extreme excitement towards Hiroi, who's getting ready to give it his all. But let's just take a quick moment to appreciate Neru, who tried to comfort Kiora as he went back to his seat. I swear Neru is such an overlooked character. He's always there to hype or comfort his teammates. Same goes for Kitsunezato. Anyway, back to Hiroi, who thanks Isagi for picking him. However, Isagi says that he didn't do it for him, and that he instead needs his abilities to score, as he asks him if he can use metavision, which Hiroi surprisingly and calmly says that he can. Isagi violently throws his water bottle down on the ground, as he asks Hiroi what he was able to see when Snuffy stopped his counterattack. Hiroi says that Isagi would have been able to score if he had gotten the ball at his feet. However, he adds on by saying that they can't fault Yukimiya for sending that lob pass, as it was thanks to him dribbling that Isagi created the space needed to score. Hiroi then follows up with the most important question, asking what Isagi's plan is. However, Isagi takes some inspiration from Noah, as he tells Hiroi that he has no idea at all, which shocks Hiroi as he says that he can't believe that Isagi would demand Noah to pick him without a plan. Isagi says that it was the only choice he had, and as Ubers also made their substitutions, they will probably have to ad-lib and improvise on the fly. And with that, he puts his hand out to Hiroi and says that they will win 100%. Hiroi says that what they need right now is a collaborated winning vision, where they both read and analyze the game with metavision as he meets up with Isagi's hand. He also thinks to himself and wonders why it is that he doesn't hate the expectations that Isagi has for him, and that he's definitely going to change during his match. As the masters sit down, Noah tells Snuffy that he didn't expect him to resort to such emotional tactics, and asks him if he got all soft due to those brats' enthusiasm and passion. After that, Snuffy says that he can see why Noah chose Isagi as his protege, as he's got quite a unique talent. Noah says the same thing about Baru, and says that his potential would be up there with some of the best U20 strikers in the world, which Snuffy definitely agrees with. He even says that seeing Isagi and Baru so fired up together reminds him of Noah and Ego and the twisted rivalry they had. However, Noah just tells him not to compare him to that twisted maniac. After that, Snuffy even goes so far as saying that if those two continue to evolve at this incredible and fast rate, their little pipe dream of Japan someday winning the World Cup might go as far as coming into reality. We quickly leave the Masters and go to Ness, who's currently stressing his heart out, saying that even just containing Isagi is already a pain in the ass. However, now they will have to adapt and deal with Uber's unpredictable tactics as well. He even goes as far as saying that there's a chance that he and Kaiser will actually lose. But just then, Kaiser comes and puts his arm around Ness, asking Ness what's wrong, and says that if he keeps looking like that, even the goddess of victory will abandon him. Ness starts to freak out even more as he asks Kaiser what they should do, but Kaiser just tells him to be calm and says that every game has gaps that they can exploit, which Isagi will definitely try to find. With that, Kaiser has an intense and furious look as he says that he will destroy them all and asks Ness if he's ready for it. We leave the married couple and go to Lorenzo, who tells Baru that he can have one of his golden teeth, which Baru quite easily turns down. Lorenzo tells him that he's indebted to Baru as he's never ever seen Snuffy make such a face before. Baru tells him to pay back the debt now, and that they all better set him up for winning. The game is starting to begin soon, and with that, we see a bunch of Bastard München players being determined not to lose. As Gagamaru says that he will definitely stop the next one, we also have Yukimiya, who says that he will now become the game's hero. Reichi also tries to hype them up, and says that now that Snuffy is gone, it's time for them to shift the game back in their favor. The speakers suddenly go off and say that the stage is set after a fierce back-and-forth battle with sensational goals on both sides. Bastard München and the Ubers are tied 2-2. Who will be the one to score the winning goal and emerge as this game's protagonist? As this is going down, we see Isagi walking with pieces flying everywhere as he ironically says that he's got all the pieces he needs to score and become the hero. He will take full advantage of Hiroi's playmaking abilities and dominate this game. And just like that, the final restart in the Neo Egoist League Match 5 kickoff finally starts as we see Bastard München starting it off, and Isagi thinking to himself that the last goal and the king of the game will be him. After that, we see both Kaiser and Ness advancing on the field, when suddenly Baru comes forward, asking Kaiser to show him what he's made of. Kaiser just pulls his regular scary face as he says that he will take Baru down. However, while they are going at each other, Ness notices something strange. He notices that Baru is there trying to press them, which he has never done before. Kaiser passes the ball to Ness, who knows that in a situation like this, his job is to lure them in, which he definitely does as he gets behind not one, but two Ubers players. Baru tells them to trap Ness, but before they can do anything, Ness has already gotten away with an outstanding pass to Kaiser, who traps it marvelously. Like, I'm not gonna lie, but Kaiser's trap reminds me of something Nagi would do. Anyway, Ness falls flat on the ground, but even though he got his face crushed, he still said that it was a success as he got the ball to Kaiser. Kaiser looks unstoppable as he's advancing up on the field. He even manages to catch one of the Ubers players off guard by just attacking straight. Nico tells his teammates not to let him shoot and to watch out for the flanks. However, Grim has already managed to find himself a position on the flank as he calls for Kaiser. Even so, Grim doesn't satisfy Kaiser, who is forcefully looking for a path that he can send his Kaiser's impact in. He gets behind another one of Uber's defenders and cuts to the right to find himself a golden opportunity in between Aiku's and Ryu's faces. He shoots the ball with his lightning strike, and it would have gone in if it weren't for Lorenzo, who comes in his way and sacrifices his face to save the goal. The ball goes up in the sky and Isagi has his eyes on it. He knows that he has to run and get to the ball first. The ball is slowly going down and he thinks that if he can reach it, then he can turn it into a direct shot right away. However, just then, Aiku comes and heads away the ball, telling Isagi that he isn't the only one with metavision. Before we move on, let's just take a moment to really appreciate this fantastic panel. Aiku looks like a beast, and the snake is so well done that I'm almost speechless. The ball falls down to Hiyori, who's already in a feared 1 versus 1. However, Baru feels a bit alone, so he decides to join in on the fun, calling Hiyori naive and a bench warmer as he pushes him to the side. Nico also comes by and says that he's shocked to think that Baru himself would come and help out on the defense, as he comes and just hijacks the ball from both of them. Isagi is quietly watching from the side, saying that he can't believe that Baru willingly decided to do the dirty work and play defense from the front, saying that something like that was unthinkable until now, and for them to account for that, their decision-making will be one step slower. Baru's loyalty is only to himself, which makes for a perfect union where a king combines forces with a flawlessly designed army, which allows him to pursue his glory. However, it isn't only Baru who's undergoing an insane evolution, as the whole of Ubers is feeling the same thing while leading their king. All of the Ubers players are advancing up on the field in their intense counter-attack, and they turn to Baru for an idea of who they should attack, but Baru just tells them to shut up and work, saying that he will make a hat trick in this game, and as he uses the Neo Egoist League, he's going to show the world that he's the best player in the world. On the other hand, we have Hiyori, who thinks to himself that he is insane, saying that this is a totally different level than before. He says that the Ubers are outstanding, and that they are too fast and too good, which makes it impossible for Hiyori to read them, saying that he hasn't gotten into the game at all. Hiyori is in shock that Isagi has been able to constantly aim for the goal which fighting all these monsters, not to mention Kaiser or Baru. Hiyori wonders how they are able to score goals at this level. He calls everyone here a twisted psycho before saying that he fucking loves this place, saying that this is the first time he's ever experienced this type of intense and mad football, before Isagi calls out his name and tells him to come to him. After that, we get thrown back into Hiyori's backstory, where he just fell down a flight of stairs, thanks to his mom and dad arguing. They rush over, but they aren't worried about him, not even in the slightest. They are only concerned about his precious football leg, and even the mom has the audacity to tell him how much time and money they have invested into Hiyori. And it was at that moment that he realized that his parents sadly didn't love him, and that all they cared about was his specs. That tragic day left Hiyori in despair, and since that day his passion and attitude for football changed. Before he only played football because it made his parents happy, but now he only plays football because he doesn't want to break up his family. As he's playing video games, he acknowledges that it's a disgusting and pathetic reason, and that his attitude towards football is also pathetic, but even so, he doesn't have anything else that he can fully devote himself to. Hiyori's eyes are filled with emptiness and darkness as he says he began to coast through life, trying to find something that could help him ignite his passion. But then he meets Karasutabito. He tells Hiyori that all that crap about people's expectations, to just think about that later, and to instead start with yourself, and to believe in yourself. He tells Hiyori that he needs to find something that truly gets his blood pumping, and if he doesn't stop there, then he will just keep running around in circles like an idiot. But even so, for Hiyori to believe in himself was something close to impossible, because for him, things like expectations are just curses and almost like chains which is weighing him down. Hiyori desperately wanted to get away from his parents and to just escape that miserable and tragic household, which was the sole reason that he came to Blue Lock. He did his best to survive in Blue Lock because, like he said before, he didn't want to go home. And then we see him in the tag game where he took someone out, which was quite interesting because we don't know that much about the other's experience in the early stages of Blue Lock. Anyway, thanks to Hiyori desperately clinging to that ego, he was able to hang on and survive within Blue Lock, even going as far as helping Isagi in the 3rd selection and helping to win the U20 match. And now all that's left is the Ubers game, which we finally get back into. Reichi is screaming at Bastard München to stop Uber's counterattack quickly, but as Hiyori is running back to help alongside Isagi, everything he can think about is how fast the Ubers are playing and how he's slowly falling behind. Even Ness is impressed at the Ubers' ability to dribble and advance at such a pace as they are going. Hiyori thinks that the quality of their combination plays is something truly outstanding that he's never experienced before. And not to mention the fact that Baru can get the best out of them, just like a king would move. But at the same time, it's not like he's moving selfishly. Baru, even though he's a selfish jerk, the aura that he's able to emanate makes the people around him trust him and follow his lead. Players who become the world's #1 striker probably have that ability that makes people follow them, which is amazing, but still something that Hiyori is unable to do now. An ego that teammates believe, trust, and gravitate toward. Hiyori has never really cared about believing or wanting to become the best player in the world, but then one day he saw Isagi, a player who sees the game in the same way as Hiyori does, and a player with his eye set on being the world's best player. And then it clicks for Hiyori that he isn't just a player, but that he's the key to Isagi's evolution. But it doesn't stop there either, as he says that he's the only one who can unlock his full potential. He thinks that if he hadn't come to Blue Lock, none of this would have happened. All of those golden opportunities that only he can see, they're his reason to fight on. Isagi holds the potential to become the world's #1 striker, but if they fail to capitalize on this golden opportunity, there's a good chance the world will forget about his potential. But it's fine, as Hiyori is the key, and he will be the one to unlock it. He will unlock a future where Isagi dominates the world stage, and that's a future worth living for. He will make Isagi the king of football. The ball falls onto Nico's shoe, which makes the ball bounce up, and out of nowhere, Lorenzo comes by and just sweeps away the ball. Both Isagi and Kaiser are there alongside Lorenzo, and they are both thinking that there's no way that they will let Lorenzo pass Baru. However, he unfortunately reaches the ball first and passes Baru, who's in front of the penalty area. As the ball is going toward him, out of nowhere the man himself, Hiyori, comes and stops the ball. He calls them idiots and reminds them that he also has metavision. He thinks that his ego isn't something that someone pre-planned for him. It's an ego that holds the key to the future, and most importantly, it's an ego he found for himself. And with that, he puts the key in his locker and finally breaks out of the chains that have been weighing him down all this time. He has a fierce look on his face as he looks to Isagi, telling him that it's time to fucking do this. Everyone from the Ubers squad is shocked to their core by Hiyori's play. However, someone who is ready to attack is Isagi, who screams at Hiyori to win this. Isagi thinks that by Hiyori covering for Isagi's blind spots, he then managed to plug the holes in their defense. We see Isagi and Hiyori advancing up on the field with Hiyori being deep in his metavision. Sendo comes by and thinks that he is someone but gets out dribbled by Hiyori. And I don't know why, but this little panel is so satisfying that I can't stop staring at it for some reason. Anyway, after Sendo lies Nico waiting, but before he can do anything to Hiyori, Hiyori has already managed to get a pass off to Isagi. These two are sharper than ever, as there's no room for errors now, and by Hiyori perfectly syncing up his winning vision with Isagi, they are able to steam up the field, even involving Yukimiya in their attack. As they are trading passes, Hiyori thinks that Isagi has many weapons in his arsenal like his metavision, football IQ, and direct shot. However, Isagi's greatest weapon is without a doubt his ability to devour his rivals while still continuously fighting inside this twisted and chaotic field. Isagi's ability would have never awakened it if he hadn't come to Blue Lock, and is also the foundation of his ego. And right now, that ego is trying to propel him to become the world's best player, and only Hiyori holds the key to awaken his revolution. The emergence of the next football hero, and a hero that will change the history of football, is only a vision that Hiyori can construct and envision. That's the one thing pushing Hiyori forward and is why he plays football, which is the foundation of Hiyori-Yo's own ego. Let's just take a quick second to admire how Hiyori absolutely crushed the Ubers players in this panel. Like bro wasn't even thinking about them, but he still got behind them like they were nothing, even mere air to him. And I can't explain, but Hiyori's way of dribbling and getting behind his opponents looks so clean and satisfying. Even the Ubers players are saying that Hiyori's way of getting behind them is outright filthy. Hiyori's eyes are burning with determination, as he says that mass-producing goals isn't the only way to become an egoist, and that it was Isagi who helped Hiyori realize, because Hiyori is an egoist who produces the game with his passes. Here we see Hiyori fully looked in as he spots the perfect position for Isagi. Hiyori notices that Isagi wants to make a run for it, and to then uses a direct shot. Hiyori locks onto Isagi and passes him as he says that the future that Isagi envisioned, it's finally time to synchronize his vision with his goal. Hiyori's pass is going forward at an outstanding pace, and Isagi tries to run away from Aiku, who's looking him down nicely. The pass is perfect for Isagi. However, as he goes into his direct shot position, Lorenzo and Aiku comes back and tries to stop him. Lorenzo has his tongue out as he tries to be Rin, and he tells Isagi that it's the end of the line here. However, Isagi thinks that it's going perfectly, and that everything that is happening is exactly how he envisioned it. As Lorenzo goes in for the ball, Isagi instead taps the ball, which makes it go over Lorenzo's head. As Hiroi is watching from afar, he says that this was their plan along, making the first move to be a fake, to then turn around and use his lefty direct shot, creating a two-stage attack that allows Isagi to create enough space to shoot freely. I wish I could say that it ended here, however Kaiser is coming behind Isagi, telling him that he knew about their plan and that he will be taking this as he sprints to Isagi. Isagi is stunned, saying that Kaiser knew that he was going to fake out Lorenzo with his right and targeted the instant he was going to shoot with his left leg. Kaiser is planning on stealing his goal in mid-air, however Isagi has had enough of his shit. So he still makes his lefty shot, saying that the ball is his. And with that, the two of them create a joint attack by combining Kaiser's Kaiser impact with Isagi's direct shot to create their new combo shot, which I would say is my new favorite shot of the series so far. However, of course the Ubers are here to ruin the fun, as both Ryu and Baru are at the line and manage to block the shot with their legs. Even Ryu is stunned to see Baru at the defense line, and on top of that blocking a shot. Isagi lands and says that thanks to Kaiser he couldn't cleanly strike the ball, which made it a worse shot. Hiyori is still in the back watching it go down and says that he can't believe it. He and Isagi were in perfect sync, but the way Kaiser and Baru stopped them from scoring, it's almost like the two moved in a way that surpassed their expectations. And even though they are playing the game perfectly and flawlessly, the rate that the rest of the field is evolving is still a bit faster than their combined decision making, and for them to fully dominate at this level, they are unfortunately still one piece short, and with the ball high up in the air. Everyone is rushing to get their hands on it, but the ones who get there first are Ryu and Kunigami. However, Ryu uses his outstanding jumping skills to head the ball first. The ball bounces on the ground before it goes to Aiku and Kaiser, but suddenly out of nowhere, Isagi comes and is able to get off a pass to Hiyori on the side. Hiyori gets the ball, and Isagi screams at him to go one more time. Thanks to that, Hiyori knows that Isagi still believes in him. Hiyori thinks that the best thing to do is to reset their attack and surpass their previous winning vision to create a brand new attack pattern. But just as Hiyori is getting ready to attack with Isagi, he sees two silhouettes of his parents behind him. They are telling, or almost forcing him to shoot the ball instead, telling Hiyori that they expect great things from him and that he needs to become the number one. After that, Hiyori gets a rather unpleasant and worried look on his face as he says that from the start, his parents heaped expectations on him, which he absolutely hated. And the whole point for him coming to Blue Lock was to escape those expectations that he was drowning in. But right now, isn't that all he's doing? Trying to live up to Isagi's expectations like his parents. But it's different with Isagi, as Hiyori doesn't hate the expectations Isagi has set for him. Hiyori is in despair, trying to think of the right answers, when another silhouette appears before him, but now it's Ego who's also telling him to shoot, asking Hiyori if that isn't what being a striker is all about. Then it clicks for Hiyori, as he thinks that the missing piece to the puzzle might be his shooting ability. Isagi is running on the side, trying his hardest to get Hiyori's attention as he shouts at him to look at him and to give him the ball. Hiyori is about to do what Isagi says, as he's the reason Hiroi's managed to get this far. But suddenly he thinks back to him and Karasu talking back in middle school, where Karasu told him to believe in himself, to find something that truly gets his blood pumping, because if you don't start there, you'll just keep running in circles. And with that, Hiyori finally says that he gets it, as until now he never took his future into his own hands, but instead let his parents decide his future. He then blamed them and ran away because things didn't go his way, because that was his way of not getting hurt. As he gets behind Nico, he says that he is afraid of being alone and abandoned, but then making a 180 and calling himself pathetic. He pretended that he is some stoic person when he's really just a coward who keeps on running away. But from now on, he won't hide behind people's expectations of him anymore, because from now on he will believe in himself, and if he ends up being alone and abandoned after that, then that's whatever, because if he was truly born for the sole purpose of playing football, then this shot will be his answer. Hiyori says this as he fires off an absolutely outstanding shot against the goal, which means that he betrayed Isagi, who is looking at him with a stunned expression as the ball is flying past his face. Both Aiku and Lorenzo are thrown off by Hiyori's shot, which came out of nowhere, but just when you thought that it will finally end, someone else comes in the way, and this time, it's none other than Sendo Shuto, who is by the goal, and jumps up to barely touch the ball, but still touch it, enough to make it bounce away, making Sendo save another super close goal. However, as Hiyori is witnessing this, he looks destroyed, saying that he knew it, and that he wasn't a person who was born to play football after all. However, someone doesn't agree with that, and it's Isagi who has pieces flying around everywhere as he compliments Hiyori, saying that he's finally found his ultimate winning formula. As Hiyori watches the ball flying in the air, he thinks that he wasn't a person who was born to play football after all, saying it with a crushed and destroyed expression on his face. The ball falls down to Aiku, who traps it perfectly, but Hiyori couldn't care any less, as he says that he suffered so much and experienced so much frustration from all of this. He tried so hard to believe that playing football was what he was made for and what was his purpose. However, that shot told him that he wasn't worthy, but honestly, he felt okay with it. After he goes home, he will sit down with his parents and tell them. He will finally tell them that he's done with football. Hiyori is casually standing on the field, while everyone else is running around in chaos. Hiyori has a bittersweet expression on his face as he says that he gave it his all and that he can now move on without a single regret. He thanks Blue Lock for his blessing and even lets out a smile of relief. However, while Hiyori is in this euphoric state, Isagi out of nowhere comes running to him, screaming his name all that he possibly can. Hiyori looks over with a surprised face to see Isagi with burning eyes telling him to do one more. Hiyori can't understand what is going on. While he's trying to figure out what Isagi is saying, the whole Uber's squad is beginning their counterattack and is rushing over. Hiyori is frozen as he thinks that Isagi still believes in him, but just why? Hiyori decided to shoot and betray him instead of passing, so why would Isagi still have faith and believe in him? Isagi is running like never before on the field as he screams at Hiyori to not even think, telling him to go crazy and to surpass their wildest imaginations and to do it on reflexively. When Isagi says that, Hiyori remembers that it was that exact advice that he once gave to Isagi in the third selection. But why would Isagi say that now, and what could he mean? Hiyori is totally dumbfounded as he says that he doesn't get it, but still, he wonders what it is that makes him desperately want to meet Isagi's expectations of him. He thinks back to his parents' expectations of him, and how horrible they were, saying that every single one of his parents' expectations was always focused on his physical specs, meaning his human side of things. But with Isagi, it's different as Isagi's expectations aren't focused on the human side of Hiyori, but instead, the things that he can change through actions. His expectations are super goal-oriented, especially goals that have the power to change his destiny. Ever since he arrived at Blue Lock, Isagi has been searching for comrades who can help him achieve that reality, which is why everyone gets drawn to Isagi's ego and tries their best not to get devoured by him. While Hiyori has been thinking to himself, Lorenzo managed to get the ball away from Isagi and up to their ace striker Baru, who's in a one-on-one with Yukimiya, who's desperately trying to stop Baru from shooting. To help Yukimiya, Raichi comes and says that the two of them can trap him, so Raichi goes in and tries his best to cover the goal. However, as time passes, Baru starts getting more angry and aggressive until he's had enough and pushes both of them to the side to get off a shot at the goal. But sadly, all of his efforts will go to waste as Kunigami is waiting for the goal. He calls Baru a redhead gorilla before he blocks the shot from Baru. Isagi compliments Kunigami's block, but he's so stuck up with himself that he tells Isagi to shut up and that he didn't do it for him. All the 22 players on the pitch are trying their hardest to win this match, or I should rather say 21, as Hiyori is slowly jogging in the back. Hiyori's disappointed because just when he thought that he could move on, and just when he thought that he could finally go home and play some video games, he was finally ready to quit football for good when it all went into ruin. After that, Gagamaru catches the ball in the air and throws it up on the field right away, telling them to finish this game already. But suddenly, someone says that he already knew that Blue Lock was a twisted madhouse, and that Gagamaru's shit pass won't lead to the finishing goal. It was Hiyori who said it, and is now back in the game, saying that just one last time he will make an exception while looking at Isagi and saying that this will be his last attack on Isagi's crazy and twisted ego. Hiyori gets down on the ground, and right off the bat, both Nico and Lorenzo come rushing toward him. Nico tells Lorenzo that they will crush him with a high-press trap design, which Lorenzo is on full board with. However, Hiyori has gone into rage mode as he tells them to just shut the fuck up, as he does an outstanding rainbow flick over both of them, and then sneaks behind Lorenzo before he can even comprehend what is happening. The ball falls to Isagi, who tells Hiyori to keep up the tempo. But as Hiyori hears this, he wonders who the hell Isagi thinks he is, as he's ordering Hiyori around, saying that if it weren't for him, Isagi wouldn't even be able to impact the game at all. He thinks this as they make a 1-2 with each other to get away from Lorenzo and Nico. Nico is stunned by what Hiyori has just managed to do, and Lorenzo is just weird as always. Anyway, Hiyori gets behind another Ubers player like it's kindergarten football for him. Even though he's getting behind the players with ease, it feels like he isn't even paying much attention to them, as he in his head says that after this match, he will quit football for good. He sees Isagi coming behind the Ubers defender, so he passes him. But after that pass, Hiyori suddenly gets a random realization, asking himself what it is that he's doing, running around like a crazy maniac while feeling a rather unique feeling. He wonders if it is due to Isagi's nosiness, kindness, or even friendship, but it's definitely none of the above, as Hiyori couldn't care less about any of it. And if he's being frank, then the only thing he cares about is seeing whether Isagi really is the real deal. And if Hiyori holds the key to becoming the best, then he wants to experience the moment that the world changes around him. But this also confuses Hiyori, as he can't believe that he has such a greedy ego deep inside of him. As he's getting back the pass from Isagi, he says that this is the first time that his mind and body are in perfect sync when playing football. He doesn't really understand it, but says that this might be the feeling you get when you start to believe in yourself. But even with this new and crazy feeling he's experiencing, he's still set on quitting football after this match. He finally stops thinking for a second as he passes the ball to Isagi. However, Isagi does a little Mario jump above it and lets it roll over to Yukimiya, who is in a one-on-one with Drago, but he's still able to get the ball back to Hiyori. Hiyori sees that they are 38 meters away from the goal, saying that he's still not in the range to deliver the final pass, but just maybe Isagi can manage to get behind the defense. But they still haven't broken it down, so how could he do that? But at the same time, this just might be the perfect timing for them to score. Isagi is quickly and swiftly trying his hardest to run behind the Ubers, but even with his attempts, Hiyori still says that they are too far away, saying that he hasn't shaken off his marks yet, and he starts talking about the best option for them to take. When suddenly, out of nowhere, Isagi just decides to stop. Hiyori is angry, wondering why the hell Isagi decided to stop, and tells him to keep on moving. Hiyori asked him how the hell he was supposed to pass the ball to him if he was standing still with two defenders behind him. He wonders if he wants Hiyori to try and go for another goal again, or what it is that he's thinking. But suddenly the piece floats together, and Hiyori remembers what Isagi said beforehand, telling him to don't look and don't even think, just telling Hiyori to surpass their wildest imagination instinctively. Hiyori is in shock after realizing Isagi's plan, calling Isagi a real maniac, and wonders how he will even be able to pull this off, saying that no matter how you look at it, this is crazier than anything he's ever done before. Isagi's eyes have a determination like never before as he tells Hiyori to sense it, the field's own blind spot. Hiyori thinks that it's possible while mostly theoretically. Isagi tells him to do it and says that he's the only one that can do it. So Hiyori throws all of his thoughts to the side and calls Isagi an arrogant bastard before telling him to do it. Hiyori is getting ready to pass with both Aiku, Nico, and even Kaiser before him. And that's not all that's in front of him, as there's a ton of pieces flying like crazy all over the field as the two of them are getting ready to make history. Hiyori says that Hiyori Yu will now become the center of the world. Nico knows that he can't stop Hiyori in a one-on-one by himself, which leads him to his only option, which is to try his best and slow down Hiyori's attack. As Isagi is waiting by the defenders, Ryu says that right now Isagi is playing off Hiyori's movements to receive the final pass. Ryu is still set on keeping him locked down and refusing to let Isagi move freely. However, It isn't just Ryu who's deep in his thoughts as Aiku is carefully analyzing the field, saying that by aiming for the chaos created by those two by predicting the trajectory of Hiyori's pass, Kaiser's only intent is on forcibly snatching the winning goal, which Aiku is sure of, so he knows not to take his eyes off Kaiser. Kaiser is coming towards Isagi, while saying that he will kill him, and I know that this is Blue Lock, but that seems a bit too far, even for Kaiser. But I don't doubt that he would do it if he got the chance. Anyway, Hiyori is currently going crazy against Nico. He's dribbling the ball so fast that Nico has absolutely no idea which way Hiyori is looking to go. He analyzes Hiyori's movements and says that he will go right, but just as he goes in for it, Hiyori moves to the left side. This not only gets him behind Nico, but also opens the pass route, and they are now both ready to do it. But as Isagi is getting ready to receive the pass, Aiku sees something else. He sees that Hiyori is only looking at the ball, and understands that Hiyori is planning to shoot the ball all by himself. This turns out to be true as Hiyori gets into a shooting position and is ready to fire it off, when unfortunately, Lorenzo comes out of nowhere. Lorenzo calls him selfish, but admits that this is all that Blue Lock is about. Lorenzo goes in to take the ball, only to realize that Hiyori was planning on doing a feint all along, which even leaves Nico wondering what Hiyori is up to. The ball goes up in the air, but that's when Hiyori's next threat comes into the picture. As the king himself Baru comes by, he calls Hiyori predictable and says that in the end, he's just gonna pass after all. Baru screams at Hiyori that the pass route is now sealed off, telling Hiyori that without Isagi, he's just an insignificant lackey who is too weak to stand up and fight for himself. But Hiyori has a look in his eyes like never before. It's almost like his mind is fully in the game and nothing else. Anyway, Hiyori tells Baru that he was too slow and also throws in a dumbass because why not? As Hiyori is surrounded by 3 Ubers players, he says that he can already see Isagi winning the final goal. And just then, out of nowhere, Isagi, without looking at Hiyori, just starts sprinting. And not even Kaiser understands what is going on at this point. But then it clicks for them all, as Isagi runs away from Ryu, and Hiyori gets a window open up from Baru. Everyone on the pitch sees that the two of them aren't even looking at each other, and instead putting their full trust that each other will be there at the correct time. Hiyori's and Isagi's eyes are burning like never before, and it's more than enough to burn the whole Blue Lock Stadium to the ground. Anyway, Hiyori finally gets off the pass, which just goes over Baru's leg, and is heading into the pit of players all gathered around each other. Hiyori asks Isagi if he's there, which Isagi definitely is, as he catches the whole Uber's defenders off guard, and is now almost free from them, even leaving Kaiser behind them as he looks at Isagi clueless. As the ball falls to Isagi, Hiyori and Isagi in sync say that if they are the real deal, then by clashing and crossing their visions of becoming the best player in the world, they will be able to go even beyond their wildest dreams. The ball is falling down, and it has a glow around it like never before, as Isagi Yoichi, the Blue Lock's MVP, the Blue Lock's egoist, and Bastard München's new ace, he gets into direct shot position and absolutely demolishes the ball as it falls down to let his leg. Fukaku tries his best to catch, but I don't even think that the best goalkeeper in the world has a chance of catching it as it goes into the net and finally gives Bastard München their well-deserved lead. Isagi and Hiyori are absolutely ecstatic as they jump up in each other's arms to celebrate this insanity of a goal. What an insane match that was. We had everything from insane and mind-blowing goals to tragic past backstories, and of course the redemption and insane performance by the one and only Isagi Yoichi. But please tell me what you thought about this match down in the comments, and if you like Blue Lock and videos like this, then I would highly suggest you subscribe to this channel, and while you are at it, leave a comment and a like, as it helps out with the algorithm a ton. And if you are curious to see another one of my videos, and maybe even the one where I go over another one of the matches, then please watch the video which will be popping up at the screen now. Anyway, thanks for watching and have a great day. Bye.